The V8-engined, factory-tuned Mercedes C-Class has a special place in the history of AMG. When Mercedes' parent company Daimler Chrysler bought control of Affalterbach in 1998, it was shortly after the introduction of the very first AMG model to be built on a normal Mercedes factory production line, rather than stripped and reassembled later in an AMG workshop. And that was the W2 generation C63. It became Mercedes' official response to the rising power that was the BMW M3.
The Mercedes C-Class Super Saloon would go on to use V8 engines for 3 more model generations after that. There was an attempt, a bit of a gesture at engine downsizing with the last version when Mercedes switched from a 6.2 litre Atmo V8 down to a 4 litre turbo, but of course power output rose anyway. But now, 25 years on, the V8 engine is finally out. The new C63 S E-Performance is a new sort of Mercedes Super Saloon for all sorts of reasons. It's the first hot C-Class with 4-wheel drive, but it's also got 4-wheel steering. It's the first car of its kind that's a plug-in hybrid, but it's not just any old plug-in hybrid powertrain. And yes, it's only got a 4-cylinder engine, shock horror, but it just so happens to be the most powerful 4-cylinder engine in a production car made anywhere in the world.
AMG has taken the 4-cylinder M139 engine that's been powering its smaller performance cars for some time and strapped on a special enlarged electrically driven turbocharger for this car. And so from just 2 litres of capacity, this engine makes fully 469 horsepower. But there's also a 201 horsepower electric motor that drives directly into the car's rear differential through a 2-speed gearbox all of its own, and that draws power from a specially developed liquid-cooled 6.1 kWh drive battery. So, with 671 bhp of total system power and 752 pounds-foot of system torque, this new C63 certainly has numbers that get your attention. Another one, mind you, is the car's curb weight. All that technology has turned the C63 into a 2.1 tonne car, but it's one that'll do 62 miles an hour from rest in just 3.4 seconds, and that's true whether you go for the 4-door saloon or the estate version.
Okay, we're going to do this backwards this time. Normally we go road first, track second, but I think it's more interesting with this car to start on the track and see what all this new tech is all about. So, this is a C63 with a whole lot more going on. We have got 4-wheel drive for the first time. We've got 4-wheel steering for the first time. We've got an electric motor on the rear axle driving directly into the e-diff with a 2-speed gearbox, and we've got a high performance battery that can deliver 200 horsepower on what they call boost mode. Now you have to go past the kickdown switch on this car to get that boost mode. So to make this car go flat out and get 671 horsepower out of it, you don't just give it full throttle, you've got to go right the way past the kickdown switch. That feels a bit weird at first, I won't lie. And the first time you do it, like then I just did, you do wonder if everything's quite right. You think, what's weird? Is that the gearbox changing gear or something? It's not, it's just the way they've set it up. In order to get maximum boost from that motor and that battery, you need to go right the way past kickdown. First impressions, it's got plenty of performance when you figure out how to deploy it. As we were saying, you've got to know that you've got to use all of the pedal and a bit more. C63s were always that perfect compromise, weren't they, of power and compactness and usability. Part of the appeal was their size. You know, they're not as big as an E63 or any number of other bigger super saloons. We'll see how that materialises on the road, I reckon. We'll revisit that later. So, beginning to pick the pace up a bit now. Just beginning to get into that boost mode on the powertrain. It's interesting. If you use the track precision telemetry app on the car, it knows something like 70 racetracks as standard. Apparently it can't learn new ones automatically, not in terms of all of its functionality, but the thing it does is, because it knows the circuit and it knows where you are in it, it can tell you when you should be using all of the car's power, when you should be you're going into boost mode, and it flashes up on the instrument pack here. You get a big lit up boost word, and it's about to go now. And then to read it back in again, all you do is lift off the kick down switch. It works pretty well once you know what to do. And maybe you do feel a bit like Lewis or George on your hot lap. It's very smart, it's very modern, it's very 2022. Not quite as simple though as a big V8 with a lot of power and a lot of torque that's right there under the pedal ready to go all the time. Takes a bit more thinking about. Does that make it more engaging? Maybe. To some people it might. Not sure it makes it more fun though. So I've got the ESC in sport mode here. Got the dynamics manager in whatever it is, master mode or something. It's kind of half off, but not quite all off. This car has a drift mode as well, just like the E63 does. So if you don't want it to be four-wheel drive, it needn't be. It handles pretty well, but it feels like a heavy car. There's no mistaking that. It's got a little bit more pitch and roll and movement about it, and when it does start to take a bit of attitude, as it did there for a second, suddenly all that inertia, suddenly you're aware of it. Dynamically, you know, I'm not sure this is quite the sharpest tool in the toolbox. I wonder how much fun it'll be on the road. So, we're out on the road in the new C63 S E-Performance. It's quite a good road actually, quite a bit narrow, but definitely very interesting, very twisty. It should tell us quite a bit about this car. We've just obviously been on the track, done some really big speeds, been exploring all the complexity and all the sophistication and technology that this powertrain has to offer. We've been boosting our electric motors everywhere, and we've been using the car's lap strategy analyzers systems to tell us exactly how we should drive this thing, a bit like we were some F1 driver on a qualifier. Get all that. I still don't feel like I've found the real soul of the AMG hot rod muscle car underneath. That's what I'm really looking for, and I'm kind of hoping that the next few minutes I might find it, because no AMG super saloon is complete as far as I'm concerned unless it can really do naughty and entertaining. They obviously didn't want us to discover that on the track earlier, so here we are on the road learning what we can. What we need to discover how fun this car can really be is to dial up one of its particular driving modes, its drift mode, which I'm going to show you how to do. Now, there are two what look like rotary selector dials on the lower quadrants of the steering wheel hub here. The one on the right is your drive mode selector, and you've got slippery mode, individual mode on one side, you've got sport plus race on the other, and you've got an electric mode and a battery hold mode in between. Obviously the car will do about 8 miles on a fully charged battery. That's not very much, but obviously the technology is designed for the performance application, not for some, you know, tax saving, benefit in kind big electric range. That's fine, because it's very good at that. It's very good at charging quickly and discharging quickly, doesn't overheat, doesn't go flat on the circuit. I mean, it does what it was designed to do. So thumbs up to that. So what we want now is race mode on the race mode controller, manual mode on the gearbox, and then we need to switch the ESP all the way off. So handling mode sport is there, hold it down. There we go, the ESP is now completely off. The next bit is the sort of secret handshake bit you need to know if you're going to be in the AMG Naughty Boy Club. Pull both pedals towards you. You then get your drift mode screen pop up on the instrument binnacle, and pull the right hand pedal again to activate it. Now we're in drift mode. Now that's not because I'm about to go doing silly stunt skids all over the Spanish roads, but I do want to find out just how much adjustability and balance there is in this car's chassis and how accessible it all is, because I think it matters. I think you have to be able to have fun in this car, and not just in that sort of F1 driver on a qualifying lap type way. There's still got to be some old school hooligan fun about
an AMG Super Saloon, so hopefully we'll find it. Can have a bit of a listen to the engine now that we're on the road and we're not constantly flat out. What do you think? It's doing quite a bit of digital engine noise synthesis at the moment. Now I've deactivated it. There are a lot of modes in this car. There's a lot of different things you can adjust. Anyway, the digital engine noise is definitely switched off now. And it's just a sort of a 4-cylinder turbo noise. As 4-cylinder turbos go, it's alright. But I noticed on the track earlier that I was sort of running into the limiter more often than I expected to. Maybe doesn't have that top end that a multi-cylinder engine would have, even though it's got that clever electric turbocharger. Obviously, makes plenty of power, but it has its limitations, I think. It's certainly got plenty of performance. I still don't like the fact you've got to go all the way past kickdown to get all of the power out of this car. But it's fast. And when it's accelerating, it doesn't feel too heavy. When it's braking, when it's changing direction, maybe it does. But the body control's okay too. I've got it obviously in maximum firm sporty setting now because you have to in order to have that rear drive drift mode selected, but it's doing okay. This is a pretty knobbly, bumpy B-road type, Spanish cross-country road. It's not unlike a lot of British roads you might find, and it doesn't feel too firm. Here's a tight corner. It's beginning to feel a little bit fun. Suddenly it's rear drive. Suddenly it feels like a proper AMG. I must say I had expected that it would feel more like that on the track, even in its regular driving modes. I'd expected to feel more of the four-wheel steering agility, more of the torque vectoring rear drive balance, more of that come through and filter through on the surface. On the track, I was a bit disappointed. It didn't really sort of express itself much in terms of the handling. It didn't really entertain as much as I thought it might. But on the road, it's doing better. And on the track, I dare say it would have done as well. It was pretty clear AMG didn't want every journalist exploring the drift mode on the circuit there, and I understand why. But when you go looking, this car can certainly be fun. So, there are evidently some of AMG's more recognisable dynamic traits to be found within the C63's driving experience, and if you look hard enough you can find a more playful side to its character, but it's quite surprising and a little disappointing how deeply that charm is buried, and that the car simply doesn't do more to engage you in normal use. That is an inevitable consequence of the way this car has moved, of how much weight, technology and complexity it has taken on, and of how many roles it can now play. This is definitely a performance car that's on a steady footing for years to come, but the role it doesn't play quite as well as I'd like is that of the simple, enigmatic, accessibly entertaining Super Saloon, which frankly is the one I'd be most inclined to pay the asking price for in the first place. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to come back to the channel for more video reviews just like this one.